Welcome to the DL, the podcast show that talks about everything to do with truck repair and diagnostics for the heavy truck and construction industry. I am your host, Tyler Robertson, CEO and founder of Diesel Laptops. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of the DL. I am your host, Tyler Robertson, and today I have with me the myth, the man, the legend, Dustin Carnes.
Oh, don't do that.
All right, welcome to the show, Dustin. So
glad to be here.
The reason I say that is because when we did our after treatment webinar, ton of comments on YouTube and social media how you really know your business.
The guys really like the diagnostics.
That is true. So for people that don't know you, why don't you first just talk about what your current role here is at Diesel Laptops, and then we'll kind of rewind through history here a little bit to give everyone a little more glimpse.
Yeah, so my name is Dustin Carnes. I am the training manager here at Diesel Laptops. Tyler brought me over a couple years ago to start developing a new training program, kind of changed and morphed over the years, but just to start something mainly for our software and whatnot, and it's kind of morphed into something else. But my background, I was a diesel technician for 12 years at CIT, same dealership that Tyler used to work at. And before that, I was an automotive tech for a couple years. And before that, I had a couple years of electrical engineering. So,
you know, I always say you should be like our electrical engineer in-house because besides doing the training, we got Dustin hand-making cables because we're in the middle of a pandemic going on and we were unable to source things from China and Italy. So
it's been fun.
Yeah, so Dustin's been our saving grace, figuring out how to handle all that stuff. So, you know, I hear a lot of people, I'm just going to hit on one thing real quick. I see a lot of people that are in auto and thinking to go into heavy duty, or they're in heavy duty thinking going to automotive. You've been on both sides of that one. Right. How was that transition, and what are your general thoughts?
At first, it was really scary going to the heavy duty stuff, but really, it's all the same basic components. It's a lot of the newer stuff is all electrical. So going from automotive, I did a lot of heavy electrical. And then when I jumped over to the diesel world, it was a little behind, of course, but that helped me out when the electrical stuff came on, especially having the electrical engineering background as well. That really, really helped me pick up on the electronics and stuff really quick.
All right. So, you know, you're the training manager, and but 2.5 years or so you've been here? 3 years?
Little over 2 years.
Little over 2 years? Okay. Yep. So when you came on, what did I hire you for? What was the role then? And what's the role today in the vein of training?
So I know, like, when we started talking, we were thinking, we need to do something. We didn't really know what it was going to be. But I think our first, thing was we were going to just do online videos. And we're gonna have like an online video library. We kind of started doing some of that, and then it morphed into, hey, we could do some in-person training classes and give some of these, because of the background that I had and saw what the needs were. Let's start out with this electrical class. And
so do you remember so we did the hands-on electrical course in Gilbert.
Yep.
And I wasn't even sure if people would come to Gilbert, South Carolina. We're on a farm field, essentially, our building, right?
Yep.
How many people would actually show up to an electrical course? And I was shocked.
Yeah. It was kind of funny. There's a little story about that because we set the page up and had everything ready to go. And then we launched it. And then we didn't get any emails for like the next day or so. And we were like, oh man, nobody's going to come to this class. And then I got an email from the other Dustin that works here from tech support. And he said, man, I got all these like signups for this electrical class. What is this? And then I look up and we're like overbooked by like 20 people for the first class. Yeah. So needless to say, it worked out pretty good.
Little technical glitch with the two Dustins in here.
Right.
So do you remember, I'm sure you do. So that first couple classes, we had people doing pre-tests.
Yep.
So how difficult were the pre-tests, and what were the results you saw of people coming into this class?
The pre-test, I and some of the other technicians that we put it together thought they were very, very basic. They were very basic.
Like what's voltage, what's amperage,
right. I mean,
how do you measure?
How to actually check a wire, how to ohm out a wire, how to do a continuity test on a wire, and really probably 10% of the people would even pass it from the beginning.
Yeah,
and it was pretty bad.
So, do you think that's because people coming in didn't know electrical, or because they thought they knew electrical but they really didn't?
A lot of guys really don't understand what the full extent of knowing electrical really is. We get a lot of technicians that come in and say, "Oh, I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm decent with electrical," but they don't really know what the extent it really can be.
Yeah.
So the good thing is now we have them here and we can help them with that.
So what percent of technicians do you see? And I'm going to go back through not only the people that come through the training class, but coworkers you've worked with before, even students you've seen some of the other classes we have, like after treatment. What percentage of those do you feel are well-versed in how to use a multimeter?
It's probably way too low of a percentage that I'd like to admit. Being at the dealership, I was helping guys left and right with the simple basics all the time. And really the reason for that is, dealers got training, but they got training on specific types of issues, like specific engines, specific this, but there really wasn't a class saying, hey, let's just teach you how to do your multimeter the whole time.
So we both came from the international dealership, right? And I guess for our listeners, I think a lot of people look at a dealership like, oh, they have all the resources, they have all the experts, those guys know what they're doing, but you were on that shop floor for a number of years. What kind of training do people inside dealerships, service technicians, actually get from their OEM? At least we worked at Navistar, and we were a Cummins dealer, and we were maybe an Allison, some branches, and then Mitsubishi Fuso.
Yep.
So during that, what training opportunities are there at the dealership level?
Most of it is very specific engine training or certain truck type training. It's, there's don't get me wrong, there's really good training, but there's kind of a lack of basics almost, and that's what these guys really needed. They needed the basics. They needed to learn, how to use this meter to fix any type of vehicle. They didn't need something specific. Okay, if this engine has this exact problem, you're going to put this part on it or whatever. It's helpful in some ways for the OEMs because they want their engine fixed.
Yeah.
But as far as building the technicians, there was kind of a lack of that.
Yeah. Well, and it makes kind of sense, right? Because it's an OEM. It's not their job to train their dealers on proper electrical or after treatment or brake systems.
Right. Yeah.
They're kind of expecting the dealerships to do that.
Yeah.
And then they provide the product training for their product.
Right.
So at the dealership level, was there training outside of the OEM, or was it pretty much just OJT?
Not that we saw.
Yeah.
There could have been opportunities. Obviously now the more we get into it, the more I see that there are opportunities out there that are just harder to find.
Yeah, they're out there, and I don't think there's a lot of bigger dealership groups have an advantage. Let's say that, right?
Right.
Because they can have a full-blown training department inside their own dealership because they got 30 locations and they got a training center and it's set up.
And it makes sense for them to do it.
It makes sense. It's harder for the small dealership groups because they just don't have those types of resources or economies of scale to be able to provide that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's tough to do. But going back to the OEM for a second, was most of it online, or were there hands-on courses as well that they would offer you guys?
Most of it was online. In the later years, most of it's online. And then once you got through, 10, 15 courses on whatever it was, then it started going to hands-on stuff. And there was multimeter and stuff like that online. But the guys, the self-paced online stuff, they really didn't get what they needed to get out of it. They needed hands-on.
So I know when I was a service manager, and this is 10 years ago, right? And everyone had to pass all these online things because their raises were tied to it and all that stuff. Right. And I wouldn't even say they were pencil whipping it, but they were definitely sharing answers and doing them in groups to get through them.
Yeah.
So it kind of defeats the purpose a little bit, but it's tough as a service manager because your metrics are tied to your guys passing.
Right.
You really don't care how they do it. You just want them to pass it. Yeah, because you look better.
Yeah.
So I think.
But then again, they're you're cheating their abilities as well. So
right.
In the end, it's gonna mess you up sooner or later.
So and you're ASE certified.
I've got 2 ASE. I recertified for 2 engine diagnostics and electrical. But I was master and diamond certified for international.
What's your impression of the ASE certification tests? Are these things people can read a book and pass, or do they need hands-on, or are they a good metric to use? Right.
So there's kind of 2 sides of it. If you see a guy who's fully master ASE certified, he knows something. Like he's not completely illiterate to it.
Yeah.
But that also doesn't mean he can go out there and fix trucks. There was some guys at the dealership as well, had all their ASE tests. You ask him to fix a truck, and he's taking forever and doing all kinds of things he doesn't need to do. And so there's kind of different aspects to it. It's a good kind of starting point. But then you also need the real world experience and hands-on portion type of training as well, I think. Yeah.
All right. So today, I know we talked about our electrical class we launched, 2 years ago now, I guess, 1.5 years ago. So it doesn't seem like that long ago, but apparently it has been.
Crazy.
So what other classes are you currently offering through Diesel Laptops for the hands-on stuff?
So our biggest class, our most sold class, is going to be our after treatment. Obviously, with all the difficulties with the after treatment systems and everything, 2007 or newer has got it on it now, and a lot of the smaller repair shops having issues with it. That's definitely our biggest issue now. So our after treatment class is our biggest. We have a CAN bus data link troubleshooting class that's coming out next. We've got electrical 1 and electrical 2. We've kind of extended our electrical classes to more in-depth diagnostics and stuff. And then we've got some other classes in the works too. So
I think one of the interesting things about us is our instructors are not traditional educators. They're diesel technicians. Yeah. How are you finding diesel techs that can turn into instructors? Because that's 2 different skill sets.
It's pretty difficult, and kind of making that transition. But we've got Scott Meek. He's kind of a natural at it. He's really good. But it is a little different. The good thing is technicians, if you're training technicians, they really like hearing the information coming from another technician.
Yep.
A guy who's been in the field, who's seen it, who's done it. It just makes a lot more sense when you're trying to display information to somebody and get them to grasp it. They just understand the lingo and everything, and it all makes more sense to them. So that's one thing we kind of differ from your traditional training classes and whatnot. We want to keep somebody from the field. If we have to teach them how to be a trainer, that's better for us than taking a trainer and try to relate them to diesel techs.
Yeah. So, and I know you have some new courses coming up soon as well. I know we got a hydraulic course coming up with a new instructor.
Yep. So Mark Lipinski is our off-highway instructor. He's developed a hydraulics fundamentals and diagnostics class. So we're pretty excited about that one. That one's going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah. So, half of our sales now for our diagnostic tools are off-highway. So all of a sudden, we found this huge opportunity with off-highway that I never expected. That kind of blew my mind when that whole thing happened. And you're also expanding not only the course offerings, but the locations of the courses. So you can kind of talk about where we're at today and what's coming down the pipeline this year?
Yep. So, of course, we've got our headquarters here in Columbia, South Carolina, right outside of Columbia. And we're basically working with some other companies. American Diesel Training Centers is one of our big partners. We're using their facilities and training our courses in their facilities. So they've got facilities throughout the U.S., and we're basically going to expand our training throughout the U.S., do our 1-2 day courses in their facilities. That way we can get a better outreach.
Yep, and I believe we got something cooking with Steve Hoke out on the West Coast.
Yep. So with DES, we're working with them in California. Hopefully pretty soon we're going to be opening up a facility out there.
Well, hopefully once this whole coronavirus, COVID virus goes away and worlds go back to normal. And I know I was just in Dallas a couple months ago, and we were actually scoping out some locations there as well. So I really think, and I'm harping on this in like every video I'm doing lately, but diagnostics is no longer just having a diagnostic tool. That's what got us here. But now I think the future got laid out really clearly to us, where it's the diagnostic tool, it's repair information, which includes parts. It's having that technical call center with live diesel technicians and IT pros, and then it's training.
Yeah.
Like, I think in order to really fix a truck efficiently, you can do any one of those four. It's not going to get you where you need to be.
It's a piece.
It's a piece of the puzzle. You need all four of them.
You have to have them all. Yep.
And when I look back, and people always ask, like, how did you guys grow so fast? And, I've had people say, oh, they do a lot of online marketing. They do this, they do that. And like, at the end of the day, man, we're just trying to help technicians fix stuff.
Right.
That's the secret sauce here is how can I help that guy fix their truck or equipment more efficiently?
You get them on the phone and you say, what problem are you having? We're trying to fix that problem, whatever problem it is.
If we can save people time fixing trucks with the diesel technician shortage going on, I think it's going to be a great thing at the end of the day. So talking about diesel technician shortage, you worked in that environment. You've been in that career. What do you think is going on? Why are people not being diesel techs? And do you see the tide turning at all?
I think one of the problems is the type, because the industry's kind of changed into, the type of technician you need nowadays is that diagnostician. You need a guy who can get in. He's more like a doctor than necessarily somebody replacing parts. And the whole stigma behind being a diesel technician, I'm going to get greasy, I'm going to do all this stuff. Well, nowadays with guys being diagnosticians, that's all they do. For the last probably 6 or 7 years of my career, that's all I did was diagnostics. Yep. I didn't do.
So you weren't fixing them? They would just say, "Hey, Dustin, we can't figure this out."
Most of the time, they would pull them in. We had our own shop with 3 guys, me, Scott Meek, and another guy. And we basically diagnosed the truck and sent it over to the main shop, and they put the parts and stuff on it. So I got greasy, but I didn't get dirty greasy underneath, doing transmissions and stuff like that. So I think there's a whole stigma behind, what a technician really is nowadays. And a lot of guys don't know that they can get into that field and make a whole bunch of money and do that. And I think that's kind of part of the problem.
There's some healthy wages out there for diesel technicians. I mean, if you're a pretty good diesel technician that's got a good attitude and ability to learn all those things, I mean, 6 figures isn't out of line.
Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Especially for like the off-highway guys and stuff.
Oh, yeah, the guys that are in the fields and having to go drive out. I was up in the Yukon. Those guys, when you talk about a road call, it was like a 2-week road call. Because they'd be out there for 2 weeks, sleeping in their truck, fixing stuff, then they go back home for a week. So those guys were knocking it dead, making money that way.
And when they're out there at the job sites, they got to have it fixed. So, like, they're going to pay, like...
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So Dustin, now that you have been a diesel tech for a while, you've been doing this, diesel techs. I mean, I remember those guys, greasy hands all the time, calloused up, no problem at all. Are you the soft hand guy now?
Yeah. So my wife always used to thought it was really weird because whenever we would cook like the frozen pizzas in the oven, I used to literally just open it up, grab the pizza, and put it on the thing. She was like, "Doesn't that burn your hands?" And I was like, "No, that doesn't hurt at all." Well, nowadays it does burn my hands. I have to grab I got to get a mitt. I can't do that anymore.
So, and I think the other important thing I want people to realize is there's always a lot to learn, right? People come to our classes to learn what you know. But even you're learning new stuff.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
So let's talk about the oscilloscope for a little bit.
Right, yeah.
Right?
So we didn't, being at the dealership, we had kind of a soft version of an oscilloscope, so we never really used one that much.
What did International call that?
It was a CPA tool.
That's right, Cylinder Performance Analyzer. Yep. I remember that now.
That's right. You had to have it, but it was basically an oscilloscope. You hooked it up, but it basically walked you through exactly what to do. So you didn't really get the full effect of using the oscilloscope and actually analyzing waveforms and stuff like that.
So when you would do it at the dealership, you would just kind of hook it up, follow directions, and then send the file to somebody somewhere at corporate?
They had some that were built in, like automatic tests, and it would automatically analyze it in the computer.
Okay.
And, give you if it automatically saw it was way out, it would give you a thing. But then sometimes it would just have you upload it to International, and then they would look at it and tell. So it was kind of taking the diesel tech out of the equation, which in some of our eyes was kind of hindering us because we could have been learning that skill. So again, that's one of the things that the dealership does is they kind of dumb things down and just give you what only parts that you need instead of actually giving you the good training. If they would have done oscilloscope training, that would have made some of us technicians a lot better because we'd be looking at things a little bit differently and probably been more efficient at some of those really difficult issues. But now that we've kind of started working with some other companies, we've got some things in the works. We're going to be doing some oscilloscope training and whatnot.
So we had Matt Shanahan on here a couple episodes back. Matt, obviously very big on the oscilloscopes and the training and how to use them. It's kind of really amazing what you can do with one of those once you know what you're looking at.
Right, yeah.
So do you think that's a tool eventually as part of a diagnostic package in a repair shop? Or are we 10 years out? Where do you see that coming?
I see a lot of the OEMs are definitely going to, bringing oscilloscopes in as essential tools and whatnot. It's definitely coming pretty quick. And we're definitely going to get into that too. It's going to be essential for certain, as more things get more complicated and whatnot, you're going to have to start getting deeper into the diagnostics with it to fix certain issues.
So my whole thing that I tell repair shops, and I do this in my presentations and talks and everything else, is look what's already changed in the last 10 years. How much longer do transmissions and drivetrains last compared to 10 years ago, right? It used to be a common thing to rebuild them. Yep. Now they got million-mile warranties on the things, right? That's changed. There's more emission components. There's more electrical components. And diagnostics are getting to be a bigger and bigger thing every day in our industry. And then you look at what's coming. What's coming is driverless mirrors, mirrorless trucks, driverless trucks, all the lane guidance and collision warning systems, all the cameras that you need for that, and all the sensors you need for that. Even the old ketchup mustard parking valve that used to be air is now electric with Bendix, right? Yep. And it's becoming more and more and more smart trailers. And now this phase 2 for the greenhouse gas stuff where they got to improve fuel economy. Well, how do you improve fuel economy? You got to
add up more systems.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yep.
So, and everyone's like, oh, we do a killing just doing, transmission swaps and doing brake jobs. Well, you know what? More and more trucks every year are going to disc brakes. Guess what? They last longer and don't cost as much to fix. Right. Yeah. Like that business
is a simple swap. Boop, boop, done.
It's going away. Right. Like you have to evolve and change if you're a repair shop. So let's think about this. If you're an independent repair shop out there, those guys don't have access like dealers do to repair information. They don't have access to the training classes. What would be some key things that you tell these repair shops? If you really want to be here in the next 10, 15, 20 years, what are some things they should do today to really get that foundation set for themselves?
They've really got to embrace the newer electronics and diagnostics and that kind of stuff. Because if you don't start getting into it now, if you're not already into it, you're already way behind the curve. You've really got to get your guys trained. You've got to get them thinking about things a certain way for these type of diagnostics. So if you're not already doing that, you need to start getting it now.
So what's funny is, this after treatment stuff came out. Really, 04 was the EGR stuff, and 07, we don't know the story. But what was interesting to me is when all this stuff started hitting aftermarket 3, 4, 5 years later, the shops didn't gravitate towards, I'm going to figure out how to diagnose this stuff and be the expert. They gravitated towards the illegal side. I'm going to go delete emissions and avoid the problem and make a bunch of money, which is completely the wrong direction. That's such short-sighted thinking because now states, guess what? They're cracking down. Right. They're doing fines. Yep. They've realized there's a revenue source to make. The government
realizes they're going to make some money off of it now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, so we have a couple blog posts on our page. And by the way, if you're listening to this and you're doing deletes and tunes, stop. I can't say that enough. You are putting not only your pocketbook in jeopardy, but your employees' pocketbook and maybe even your customers or your families. There was just a company on there, happened 2 or 3 months ago. They were selling defeat devices. And what ended up happening is they got pinched. They got caught, right? EPA sent them a letter. They ended up having to sell their house. They had to liquidate a bunch of their assets just to be able to pay the fine down towards a reasonable level that they could afford for it. Yeah. So it's no joke. And that's one company. And if you go to the EPA's website, there's people that are getting pinched that did one truck, right? So you got to be careful with that stuff. Just be smart. Think long-term, not short-term. I don't know how many times I got to tell that to people. So what do you say when people say, hey, how do I delete an emissions with this thing?
We have nothing to do with deletes. There's a lot of people think, you just sign a piece of paper, it's off-highway use or whatever. But, we were talking like off-highway has emissions now too. Like it has to be certified. Yeah. So any kind of tuning or deleting.
You can't sign a piece of paper saying it's research. You actually actually have to go back to the OEM and get them to recertify it.
Yeah, exactly.
A piece of paper doesn't cut it, doesn't help you at all. It's not worth the paper it's printed on. So training otherwise, Dustin. So I know you got the CAN bus class coming out very soon.
Yep.
What can they expect to see in the CAN bus class?
So we had a lot of technicians asking about like data link troubleshooting. So we do every year we go to Vision and we do some CAN bus data link troubleshooting classes there. But we're kind of bringing it in house and doing a lot of hands-on stuff. We've got some Arduino set up, so you've got a fake vehicle set up on a board, and you can actually diagnose CAN bus faults. So it's going to be pretty cool.
So it's pretty nice having in-house software engineers that actually understand CAN bus to be able to build the demo stuff for us in that case. So, with the coronavirus going on and no one traveling and social distancing, we've had to pivot a little bit here at Diesel Laptops.
Yep.
So, hopefully when people listen to this episode, we'll be on the tail end of this thing. But in the meantime, in the meat of it here, what have you guys had to transition with in your department?
So basically, obviously, we've had to cancel all of our in-person stuff. We've kind of switched our gears and moved over to doing online webinars and different things. So we've got quite a few webinars. We've kind of taken our after-treatment class, kind of condensed it a little bit and split it up into 2 webinars. So we've got an after-treatment diagnostics webinar for a region system, and then we've got an SCR efficiency webinar as well. So we've kind of broke that up. So those have been doing pretty good.
Right. And I'm going to go on record here. I think you could get a paid one to just learn how to read the graphs.
Yeah.
Because that's a big one with the after treatment stuff is they don't understand the charts and what's going on.
Yep.
But I know you guys are working on that stuff. So I joke. Trust me, Dustin's got more handle than I can possibly imagine here. So, but overall, again, training is a real key critical piece of the puzzle. You can put the world's greatest diagnostic tool in front of them. You can train them how to use a diagnostic tool, but if they don't know how to diagnose a truck properly, you just went and wasted really $10,000, right? There's no question about it. You need all those pieces. Definitely one of the things we do. Dustin, what's the best website for them to learn more about our training classes here?
Go to training.diesellaptops.com.
Easy enough.
All of our stuff's on there. Yep.
Sweet. Yep. Dustin, he's on some of the courses. Scott Meek. We got a variety of other people that are involved in these things as well. Mm-hmm. I know Mark's probably excited about his hydraulic course coming out here very soon. So yeah. So now you got a 3D printer downstairs too. I don't know what we're doing with that in the training room, but we got one here to
trinkets for now, but
awards, trinkets, whatever it is. Little army guys, I guess, for my kids. So with all that said, again, I will call this an episode. I really appreciate everyone's time. And just remember, it's just not diagnostics. It's diagnostics done right.